Joining us in a CNBC exclusive now is the CEO of Philip Morris International, Calantzopoulos. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
In New York City, where you've been for a couple of weeks. Let's start off with the deal talks. We learned about them on August 27th with a brief announcement, and they concluded without reaching an agreement, let's call it yesterday or the day prior.
Yep.
Why were you unable to reach an agreement with Altria for a deal?
Well, as you know, we already have a relationship with Altria because of the IQOS license for distribution in the U.S. And what we looked at is if there is a better way to maximize value for shareholders, looking at the strategic rationale in terms of additional revenue, synergies, cost synergies, obvious. In addition, more focused resources on both sides. But at the same time, clearly, like in any merger, you have to take into consideration the environment, shareholder sentiment, and I would say the effort required versus the priorities we have just now on the market. So we concluded that the best course of action is to end the discussions on the merger and focus instead on the forthcoming launch of IQOS and the partnership going forward.
My understanding had been, though, that there was a likelihood of a deal until this vaping crisis, if we can call it that, sort of began to become something of great significance. Is that the case? Do you think you would have reached an agreement were it not for the sudden banning of vaping products in various parts of both the U.S. and around the world?
Yeah. Look, it is an evolving environment just now in the U.S. And I think what we see is, first of all, to look at the bigger context, okay? All tobacco-containing products, including nicotine products, are regulated by the FDA, okay? We had an exception for a period of time for the vapor category. If I remember conversations, because they're small companies, small entrepreneurs, and it was kind of a heavy process. Now, I think the process is ongoing. It is a very emotional issue, as we know, because it involves use by teenagers and vaping. And this should be the priority by everybody to address, because this is a serious issue. And I think over time, if we take a 2-3 year horizon, after we will be gone with the e-vapor category through the pre-market tobacco product application process, say end of 21, 22, I think what we will see is a highly regulated in terms of product, marketing, and other restrictions category. But I do believe that at the end, strong brands and companies that have size and are doing the right things will be the ones that will be the winners. Now, forecasting exactly how this is going to happen with high precision is a bit difficult today. Everybody understands.
Is that why, given the lack of ability to forecast right now in this immediate moment,
I think there are many scenarios
to reach a deal with Altria?
No, that's not the case. I think we took everything into consideration. As I said, also investor sentiment. And I understand
Tell me about
our investors.
Sentiment, actually.
Yeah, because our investors were not very supportive, and we have to take this into consideration.
Do you think they failed to understand sort of the strategic rationale for the deal? You weren't able to talk about it while you were talking.
So
people were talking to me about the ability to bring together these two organizations, invest more in R&D, innovation, using what is a window that is open now as a real opportunity. Did your shareholder base fail to fully appreciate why you wanted to do it?
Shareholders, of course, had their own opinions. We couldn't explain, but it doesn't matter. I think this is closed. The discussions have ended. For the foreseeable future, we can only focus on getting IQOS, which is the only product that has authorization by the FDA on the market. I think we have a corridor of opportunity here because there will be a lot of change in the vapor market. And I think that's where the companies are going to focus.
But I think, aren't you in some ways not in line with your own shareholder base? Are they either not understanding some of the weakness you see in the overall business or the need to move more aggressively, or are you failing to understand their concerns in some fashion?
Look, I think sometimes there is a little bit of confusion amongst shareholders in general about all this new category, which is understandable because the category is new. There is discussion about decline of cigarettes. And obviously, as the new categories emerge and consumers and smokers move from cigarettes to these alternatives that hopefully they will be proven to be better, we will have a decline in cigarettes. This is in the US, and this is what's happening internationally. If we take the example of Japan, for example, we have a 25% decline in the cigarette market because products that are heated tobacco products like IQOS and others, have convinced consumers to switch to these products. I think this is very good for public health. So this is what is going to happen. And however, who is going to be the winner and the loser is what shareholders are worried about. I think Altria and ourselves are very well positioned both in this market and internationally because we have the portfolio of products for, the new world. We have the first, as I said, that is approved by the FDA. And I think we are very well positioned to be the winners in the longer term, where we hope one day cigarettes will stop existing and better products will be used by people that will not otherwise switch. And that's how I see it. Now, I understand that anytime there is a transition in an industry, shareholders are worried and sometimes over-worried. But I think both companies are very well positioned for the future.
Okay.
I think also, we see very good first steps announced yesterday from Juul that has been a little bit at the center of the discussion.
Yes,
but it's not the only e-vapor company, obviously. But it's a first very good step, and I think that was the right decision from the board of directors. And I think Altria also, with the experience they have from a very regulated category, have played a role and have a role to play going forward. As I said, we need to focus now on getting the products through the process of the FDA, because there is a lot of emotion and a lot of overreaction sometimes, and address the youth use of nicotine. And that requires quite a lot of action, not only strict regulation of flavors, but requires age limits, access control of the retail, technology to do that, technology in the devices, and education, because we told the children, don't smoke.
Right.
Now we have to tell them don't use nicotine.
If I can, just because my colleagues at the New York Stock Exchange, Jim Cramer, has a question for you as well. Jim?
Yeah, Andre, I have to disagree with you that you think that both companies have a good future. Altria is clearly a wasting asset. It wouldn't be at 8%. The only thing that Altria had was a renegade company called Juul. You know why I call it renegade? Because you chose to go through the FDA in a very rigorous process for IQOS. Would you have advised Juul to be able to take the strategy they did? Or would you think that it would have been better had they gone through the FDA rather than try to fool a lot of people? Oh, I'm sorry. Rather than convince a lot of people over 21. Oh, I'm sorry. They used a lot of underage people. They didn't expect that. What I'm saying to you, sir, is IQOS did it the right way. Did you really expect that Juul would do the back door? And do you think that was right?
Well, I think Juul and any other e-vapor product have to go through the FDA process. That's something we always advocated, not only in the US, but worldwide. We think a nicotine product must be regulated. And I think the FDA has the best process in the world, and I encourage governments everywhere else to adopt similar processes, because that creates certainty for the consumers, eliminates the confusion, and a level play field. Now, we are in the process, as we know in the US, as of May next year, everybody has to submit PMTA. These things take time and a lot of investment to do, but I think the companies can do it, they have to do it, and then I think the whole thing would be better addressed, because pre-market the products will be reviewed, and then post-market they will be very strictly followed by the FDA. And I think under this scenario, we will have a much better industry, and the best players and best brands will prevail. But I encourage everybody to go there as fast as possible. Well,
then shouldn't Juul just pull its product, just suspend it everywhere in this country, and maybe even the world, until we get the data that we need? Why shouldn't Juul just say, you know what, full stop? let's do this. Wouldn't that be the right thing? And you know, I got kids. I sure wish they'd do that.
Well, as I said, product is one thing, and I think we need strict regulation of flavors. If I'm not mistaken, Juul was the only company that has removed flavors from retail trade. Now, at the end of the day, I see also states regulating these products and taking them out of the market. We have to be careful here not to have an over-exaggerated reaction, because we need to focus on kids not putting their hands on these products, but also take into consideration there are millions of Americans today that use e-vapor products. And, you know, be careful that what is going to happen to these people if we have a blanket elimination or ban of the product. So I think we need some moderation here, and I'm longer-term thinking. But I think once the FDA process has finished, things will become calmer and much more clear.
Well, what does that mean for the U.S. market for the time being? And I mentioned that Imperial Brands this morning slashes its revenue growth expectations because of next-generation products in the U.S., namely vaping, for example, deteriorated considerably over the last month or so, given the concern. Is that your expectation? Is the market for new and replacement tobacco products going to be sort of in flux, if not doing particularly well for some time?
Well, I think if companies do things right, and I think we did the right thing, we developed these products, we put them through a very rigorous scientific assessment internally, preclinical and clinical. Then we submitted to the regulatory authorities, including the FDA, so consumers get the assurance that at least they can trust the product, and what we communicate as a manufacturer is truthful and not misleading.
Right, and that's the IQOS product. We should make it clear, the heat-not-burn tobacco product that you're rolling out around the world. You're partnered with Altria here in the U.S.
Which is not any vapor product.
And it's not vaping.
But we should not be conflating vaping in general. I think when products will go through the FDA process and do the right assessment, we will also see that vapor products are better than cigarettes and more appropriate for public health.
You believe that they will be
But they have to go through the process.
But you believe they will be better for health than tobacco?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because they have much more toxicity and exposure to chemicals, vastly lower than cigarettes. And heated tobacco products have the same. But the thing is, they have to go through the process. So once this is done, I think the category will recover, but with the right restrictions, the right limitations, the right access control, so we don't have, kids using nicotine products.
Right.
And then adults have options to switch, and I think this category is the future. And I think we are very well positioned to succeed in the category because we're the leader in this category.
And do you believe, you mentioned earlier your goal is to ultimately replace tobacco.
Absolutely.
Is that going to be hindered in part because of the concern now about vaping, and perhaps even simply because people are concerned about these replacement products overall? Are they just going to stay with tobacco longer?
Look, I think some of the comments made are confusing people who smoke today, because sometimes they don't know if these products are worse than cigarettes. 50% of Americans still believe that e-vapor products are worse than cigarettes. And I think that's wrong.
No, but we've got people dying from vaping. It's kind of scary.
Okay. First of all, it is deeply concerning that people die irrespective of the reason. Now, from what I understand, the FDA and the CDC are investigating the health reasons for that. But my understanding is this is not concerning traditional e-vaping products that contain nicotine.
Right.
Concerns other substances.
Yes.
So again,
Cannabis.
we should be careful not to create confusion amongst the millions of people that use vapor products, because this is not traditional e-vaping products with nicotine. And actually, these products existed in the market for so many years when we never had an issue. So I think we have to let the authorities conduct their investigation, but the recommendations they issue make sense. Don't buy products that are not legitimate manufacturers. Don't buy products from the black market, because that's where we have an issue.
Before we end, let's get back to the deal itself. You're not talking with Altria any longer about this merger of equals, as it was described. Do you believe at some point you could re-enter those talks when the conditions are clearer in terms of the products that you're talking about?
Well, the talks have ended, and for the foreseeable future, we'll focus on all other things we do together, and there are many ways to continue our collaboration. I think coming out of these discussions, we're better aligned on many things.
Because you do? Why are you better aligned on many things?
Because spending time much more closely, you align on many other things. Right. So it's a win-win for both companies. And I think we have enough ability, even without the merger, to further both portfolios of companies and create shareholder value for both companies. I think that's still a very good collaboration.
All right. Well, we look forward to checking in with you along the way and appreciate your taking some time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Andre Calantzopoulos, the CEO of Philip Morris International.